My team sent you a $50 million offer this morning. $50 million cash, proof of funds. The biggest fight offer you've ever been offered, but you're scared to fight me, Conor.
For those of you who don't know, Jake Paul has been making waves over the past few months by going toe-to-toe with the UFC and its contenders. Ever since Dana White made defamatory comments pinning Paul as nothing more than a YouTube boxing hack, he went on to criticize the pay gap between boxers and MMA fighters, with Conor McGregor being offered a fight with Paul in the process. But after his second loss to Poirier at UFC 264, Conor has faced some heat from Paul, who went on to troll the fighter with some pretty harsh words. Whether you're a UFC fanatic or just want to know more about this crazy situation that has developed between Paul and McGregor, you've come to the right place, as we're about to explore everything there is to know about their apparent beef. So strap yourselves in and get ready for a bumpy ride, as things are about to get interesting. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with the notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the new videos we post. The start of it all. Although a great many boxing fans only became familiar with Jake Paul after making his way into the professional boxing pool, the 24-year-old social media star has been making a name for himself since the days of Vine. He and his brother Logan actually became famous on the platform by posting videos of themselves dancing, lip-syncing, and creating comical bits for their fans. But when the platform failed financially and had to shut down, they moved themselves over to YouTube, where they became far more famous than they ever expected to be. In the case of Jake, he took to the vlogging sphere as if he had always been a part of it. Slowly but surely, he amassed a massive number of fans, becoming one of the biggest names of the platform. In fact, he got so big that he created his very own YouTube conglomerate in the form of the Team 10 House, which consisted of a number of YouTubers who had collabed together for his benefit. Jake then tried his hand at a pretty cringy music career, which was surprisingly successful in a meme-worthy kind of way. Finally, the Paul brothers decided to team up once more to take on fellow YouTubers KSI and his brother Deji in an amateur boxing match. Many saw this undercard fight between Jake and Deji as nothing more than Jake trying to ride on his brother's coattails, but after beating Deji to the ground, Jake was absolutely hooked. He decided to make boxing his new career path, knowing full well that he could offer a lot more money to former professionals who both the boxing league and UFC wouldn't be caught dead competing with. The first professional bout of his career took place against another YouTuber by the name of Ann Eason-Gibb in December of 2019, with Jake finishing his opponent off via knockout. Then came his next fight in July of 2020 against professional basketball player Nate Robinson. But the professional athlete could not defeat the Paul brother, also falling to the mat after getting knocked out. Finally, Jake took on former Bellator MMA and one welterweight champion Ben Askren in April of this year. Surprising everyone in the stadium, Jake ended up ending the fight in only 1 minute and 59 seconds, knocking Askren out cold and claiming his victory in the most stylish way possible. Regardless of what you may think of Jake Paul as a person, there's no doubt that he has become a boxing phenomenon over the years who has, alongside his brother, been responsible for the revitalization of the sport in general. It's a pretty well-known fact that boxing was losing out to the UFC in a pretty major way as far as viewership was concerned, but when the Paul brothers came along, they brought a number of fans, all of whom appear to love the combat sport more than anything right now. Keeping all of this in mind, why would Jake go after Conor McGregor, and what exactly did he do to troll the iconic MMA fighter? The history between Jake and Conor. For those of you who don't know, Conor McGregor is one of the most popular MMA fighters in the history of the UFC. Unfortunately for him, though, both his talent and likability have been waning over the past few years due to the various controversies that he has found himself in. We won't get too much into this past, but just know that the man has no problem when it comes to punching old men in bars and physically assaulting fellow contenders when things don't go his way. Fans of the UFC have also come to see him as the villain of the league due to the way that he runs his mouth both before and after fights. While this is to be expected on the UFC scene, McGregor often goes overboard. When Jake Paul offered to take him on in a professional boxing match, offering a payout of around $50 million US, fans couldn't believe what they were hearing. McGregor did choose to take on boxer Floyd Mayweather back in August of 2017 after all, so the chances of him accepting this bout were actually pretty good. But he straight up dissed Jake by refusing to comment on the offer, instead going on to be listed as the next contender to take on Dustin Poirier. That's not to say that things weren't being worked on behind the scenes. We just don't know how much information about the possible fight between Jake and McGregor. What we do know, however, is that things haven't been solidified just yet, although this too is nothing more than conjecture, it's obvious considering how no announcement has been made. It also explains why Jake is currently trolling McGregor in an attempt to get him to accept the offer. The trolling of McGregor. As it turns out, Jake Paul actually had a front row seat to the second bout of the year between McGregor and Poirier, which McGregor lost in style after he stepped back hard and broke his left tibia. It didn't take long for Paul to begin celebrating after McGregor was carried out of the T-Mobile Arena in a stretcher, with a star taking to Twitter to call him Sleepy McGregor. This little nickname was not just aimed at the man being laid flat on his back, but the way at which he was going after Poirier, who was clearly dominating him in that first round of the bout. Jake Paul then threw some salt on the wounds of McGregor by bringing up his previous offer to fight the legend of the UFC for $50 million US. Posting a statement for the entire world to see on Twitter, he said, "My new offer to Conor McGregor is $23. The social media star didn't stop there, though. He went on to tag Dustin Poirier in his next tweet, which had a picture of some NyQuil attached to it. Just below the medication was a diamond chain, but instead of a pendant being attached to it, there was an action figure of Conor McGregor with his hand on his head, mirroring how he had looked on the stretcher being carried out of the arena, clearly aimed to be a piece of memorabilia for the massive loss that the icon had suffered at the hands of Poirier. Jake said the following to the contender that had caused McGregor to break his leg. "Hey, Dustin Poirier, want me to ship this to you? $100,000 gift from me. I think you deserve it." Paul also posted an edited clip of the Conor McGregor pre-fight interview where he had informed viewers that he was going to absolutely wipe the floor with Poirier and have him leave the event in a stretcher. At the moment that McGregor says he's going to get his ass whooped and took out on a stretcher, the video cuts to a static picture of McGregor himself on a stretcher, which looked like some hilarious justice to us.
Blank face, it's gonna get his ass whooped and took out on a stretcher.
We suppose that's what you get when you run your mouth off before a fight, and it was about time that something like this happened to McGregor. Luckily for him, though, after having surgery on his broken leg, we can say that he is recovering well and will most likely be able to fight again in the future. What might be better for him, though, is to possibly meander over to a sport that isn't as harsh on his leg as MMA would be. Boxing, anyone? The whole reason behind the trolling. While many have been suggesting that Jake Paul truly doesn't like McGregor, this isn't very likely. Both of the Paul brothers grew up watching boxing and MMA from a young age and most likely idolized fighters such as McGregor, who, in their heydays, did a lot to take combat sports to the next level. But Jake has quite a bit to gain from him hosting a fight with the currently disgraced UFC legend. In all of his previous fights, fans have been watching to hopefully see him get punched in the face a few times. When it comes to his face-off against McGregor, though, we feel like the fan base is going to be pretty split. In fact, more people may actually be screaming for him to put McGregor down, which would be a bit of a change for the social media star. We also know that he has stakes in Triller, who will most likely be hosting the fight. This, along with what he gains to earn from participating in the fight itself, is absolutely insane. Think of it this way: the amount that is being offered to stars in an attempt to secure fights with the Paul brothers is enough to bring legends like Floyd Mayweather and Ben Askren out of retirement. So can you imagine what the Paul brothers themselves must be earning? Definitely more than any MMA fighter has earned throughout the entirety of his career. But to make sure that McGregor takes this fight, Jake has been trolling him in an attempt to get a reaction. Once he has reacted to the news, fans will most likely ask, why hasn't he taken the offer to beat Jake up within the rules of the game? And then, ladies and gentlemen, we have our much anticipated fight. What do you think of the trolling of Conor McGregor? Be sure to let us know in the comments section down below.